Hey everybody, it's me, Kaylee McMahon with the Apartment Queen. We have a special guest on today. I'm really excited to have her introduce herself because I won't do it justice. Today we have Pili Yarusi with Yarusi Holdings. And Pili, I'm going to let you introduce yourself.
Fantastic, Pili. I'm so honored to be on today. You are amazing. My name is Pili Yarusi. I am a multifamily owner-operator syndicator, mostly out of Tennessee and Kentucky. Started back in 2017 in large multifamily and have been loving it ever since.
That is awesome. Thank you so much for joining us today on our show. And you'll also be featured in a couple of other pieces of media that we have. What we're going to discuss today is about capital raising. We could talk all day about it from my perspective, but I think it's more helpful to have another female perspective on how we do this, because I think as women, we're also very good at that because of just innate skills like being able to have a good gut feeling for people, intuition, etc. Pili, so what I'm going to ask is what would be probably some of the pros and some of the cons of being able to raise capital?
As a woman or just in general?
Yeah, but however you want to answer that. Let's start with the cons, actually.
Let's start with the cons of raising capital. Are there any cons really to raising capital? Because if you didn't raise the capital, you'd have to pay for it all by yourself.
Right.
So let's handle that from as a woman. I guess going in, and this could be a pro or a con, people don't necessarily realize that you are having a conversation with the end game of being, and I try not to have this end game of mine, but let's be honest, when we are in the capital raising mode, that's the end game when we're having conversations with investors. And I think they know it too. But I don't think going in that they realize that I am trying to raise capital for a deal that I'm doing. I try and go into my conversations with providing an opportunity for people. So I want to know about them first. So the con in that being is if you don't structure your conversation correctly, people might be confused at the end point where you're like, by the way, I have this deal. Are you interested in it?
Yeah.
So you want to make sure that you structure that conversation. I guess another con would be to the raising money point is, we would love to go in and just be the only person, the only investor on a deal. But you and I both know that we'd only be able to afford a certain amount. So when you bring in economies of scale, for instance, if you have $100,000, you can buy $100,000 worth of property. Or you can finance the rest, of course. But if you have 10 people with $100,000, you know where I'm going with that. Mm-hmm. That's the basic syndication model. They're just pooling funds. So I would think those would be the two cons, although I don't really think I said them as cons.
No, that's totally fine. You can answer however you want to. And what would you say would be some of the pros of syndicating a deal, whether it's other large commercial buildings or multifamily, because you could actually syndicate other deals as well, like mobile home parks?
Well, that's just it. You can do so much with the syndication model. You can bring in as much funds as you can kind of dream up. It's really all about creating the basis, creating your investor network. So the pro about this is that you can buy bigger and, usually better deals, bigger buildings. The economies of scale come into play. Like I said before, if you have a certain amount of money, you can basically 10x, 100x, 1,000x that, depending on what the deal is and what structure you go for. So there's really no limits, I think, to what you can do with the syndication model, because as long as you find the deal, get the deal, and you have the investors to back it up, there's no real reason to stay at a certain level. You can keep on leveling up and say, for instance, I'm in value add large multifamily. But like you said, I could go into mobile home parks. I can go into development. I could go into buying businesses. You can syndicate anything. So there's really not any cons. You could think of the rules that we have to follow as those being a con. But again, that's just education. Just educate yourself on what you can and cannot do within the syndication model. And you're basically good from there.
I totally agree. The sky's the limit,
That's the limit.
So we covered the really basics. So if somebody is listening to this for the first time and they're going, well, what is syndication? We've kind of covered that. Now, if you don't mind, let's get into the weeds a little bit. Okay. So, for example, when you're syndicating, there's different types of offerings that are considered or that we use to be able to syndicate. What has been the top 1 to 3 different methods you've used to syndicate deals?
So far we've done 2. We are really good at the 506B model, B as in buddy. Really, how we started in that is that's what our mentor was doing at the time. Yep. So we're like, okay, then we'll just follow the same thing you're doing and we'll do it just as good. And that's exactly what we did. So the reason why the 506B worked, and this is 506B as in buddy, that's the way I remember it. That's the way I was taught. So you can only syndicate or pull funds from those people that you have a previous relationship with. And I use the 3 method. You have to have known them 3 times, have had 3 touches. Just remember the number 3. So when I tell people, especially those that are just starting out, have a spreadsheet developed. Put everybody that you know on that spreadsheet that you think you could source funding from, and then put how you know them, all the prevalent information, and then every single time you touch them regarding a certain investment, or even just to have tea or cookies or whatever, Christmas, whatever it is, even if it's like Aunt June that you've known since you were born, put that on that sheet, just so that you know and you have documentation as to how you know these people. So you can source funds from those people with the 506B, but that also means you cannot like widely market your property. You cannot put it on Facebook, you can't blast it out on Instagram, you can't talk about it on Clubhouse. So that's the bad part about it. 506B, you can also syndicate funds from non-accredited investors. Even though they're not accredited, they have to be smart, they have to be savvy investors, they have to know what they're getting into. With the 506C though, and we've done that once, we actually went out of because we've done 10 syndications. With this last syndication, we decided to go with a 506C because one of our partners was actually really good at marketing. He was like, let me at it. Let's do it. Let's do it this way. I'm like, okay, let's do it this way. So we were able to widely market it, but I still use the same thought processes as I did with the 506B. I still put down how we met them, all the touches, just because that's what I was used to. That's what I did. So with the 506C, you can actually widely market, but you can only use accredited investors. Yep.
That's exactly right. And for those of y'all who don't know what we're talking about when we say 506, it's a Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC's Regulation D. It's an exemption that we can operate under to be able to very quickly come together with an offering vehicle, because otherwise you have to fully register through the SEC, and there's Reg A, Reg A+, there's other different types of offerings, but they take, I don't know, I think I've been told like $75,000 plus, a year plus of time to set up certain systems and documentation and have conversations. Anyway, so point is being able to create a business and be able to raise funds for it when we have a limited time frame, like a closing time period. We have, time is of the essence. We're able to quickly find something and then do an exemption to be able to bring in certain types of individuals. So then under Regulation D, then we have 506B and 506C offerings. And I agree with you. That's all I've ever done. I've actually never done any of the other full registration offerings. I'm not that big yet, so the guys that I know that do that, they are, they have billions of assets under management or close to it. And so then there's a need for more regulation or more structure, if you will, to be able to, because it's a lot of people, a lot of information, a lot of things. So you just need more oversight, if you will. So.
And we're growing. You never know when we're going to get into that. I mean, I'm looking at funds, I'm looking at creating different structures, but I'm only looking at it. And for anybody that's wondering, we're not SEC attorneys, we're not CPAs. Anything that we say here, please talk to your attorney or CPA.
True that. So
yep.
We're just
always have to say that on every single podcast.
We're just talking from
my SEC attorney.
Exactly. We're just talking from experience. Everything that we say is obviously not a guarantee of any kind of return on investment or past performance is able to show what future performance would be, anything like that. So Thank you for reminding me.
Well, I mean, let's talk to that. Like, we have to say that because the SEC regulations, we have to work under certain rules, and those are one of the guidelines. And it's just good to always know your. Well, I always just follow what my SEC attorney says,
right?
And he says to put that out there.
Does this work? Does this work? Yeah, exactly. I agree with you, and it's so important as part of the team to have those attorneys. So. One thing, how did you find your attorney that you started working with when you were ready to start syndicating?
We actually got the first attorney, actually also the second attorney we worked with. We got that from our mentor.
Yeah.
Always go with those and get referrals from those people that you know, trust, and like. I mean, that's the people that you invest with. That's the people that you learn from. Know, trust, and like them. And we did, like I said, when it comes to mentorship, and I've learned this the hard way with other businesses, when it came to large multifamily, we're just like, we're getting the mentorship. We're learning from those people that have done it and know what they're doing and have the track record to follow up with that. And like, our mentor was also one of our first sponsors, went in with us on the deal.
Awesome.
And we were able to really leverage his knowledge. So when it came to those people that we worked with, of course, we were going to work with the same people.
That's awesome. Now, when we're talking about syndication, syndication is basically, like, layman's terms for that is like pooling people's funds together. And like I mentioned, kind of, it's a registration, but it's not a full registration. It's an exemption. So we are registered sort of differently, but with the SEC. So one thing that I hear a lot of when people get into smaller deals usually is that I wanted to bring this up because things keep changing, every year. Whenever people get into doing a JV, for example, I've seen it a lot with IRA funds and things like that. So that's kind of like, that would be the typical passive investor who'd use a retirement account, self-direct it. And they're going to partner up, or several people are going to partner up. Usually it's got to be more than two. So several people are going to partner up with an active individual who's going to be running the deal because they have experience. It's the same thing with syndicating. However, in single family, a lot of the time, because it is so expensive to put syndication together, that they'll just go ahead and go with the JV. But unfortunately, that is a security or a sale of a security. So that's really what we're talking about when we're talking about syndicating. We're offering a percentage ownership in this deal, which is a security. And so securities law now comes into effect. And so people talking about, there's only three of us. Well, what I was told, like you said, through my SEC attorney and through some different things that have come out this last year, was that when you have more than two people, it now is considered a security if you have people that are kind of taking the passive route and they're expecting a check, they're expecting you to handle all the business. Essentially, they're taking a completely passive role. So it's different if they're active in the business. But that was something that people are like, oh yeah, we don't need to syndicate until we have like 5 people. We don't need to syndicate until we're raising like, I don't know, over $1 million. That's not necessarily the case. So I just wanted to put that out there from other people's experiences that I've read about.
That's great information for any of the flippers and wholesalers, really. If you're pulling any sort of funding, I would talk to your attorney. Definitely talk to your attorney and ask them if you are doing it under or if you need to follow certain guidelines.
Yeah, for
great
sure.
Information.
Now, when you're syndicating, from your experience, you have to raise funds. And so there's, for example, engaging the attorney, putting together documents, and this is all usually kind of all in tandem at the same time with finding a property. So it's all happening at once. Yeah, literally. You're just like, okay. Now, when it comes to talking to an investor about a deal that, say, you knew them, they've been on your list, you have a deal now, you hit them up and say, hey, I've got a deal. When it comes to talking about, so someone, for example, that has never done a syndication before as a limited partner or a passive investor, what are some things that you say to them so that they understand, like, how risky this could be, so that they understand, like, maybe this isn't for you? Like, how do you phrase that conversation to make sure that they're fully aware of what they're getting into?
So when I have my investor conversations, I want to know more about them. I let them, especially with the first conversation, lead the conversation. I ask them questions about, where they are financially, what are their goals, what are they trying to do? Because through that, I can extrapolate that information that I need to know whether or not, like you said, am I even a good fit? Like, if they want a quick turnaround, then I'll introduce them to those people who I know will give them a quick turnaround. Because you and I both know the deals that we do, it's like a 3 sometimes 3 if we're lucky, but to 10 years. I underwrite all my deals up to 10 years, and it's like a marriage. It's a commitment, and I let them know that. So after I understand what they're looking for, if we are a good fit, I tell them about what we're doing. And if I don't have a deal, I show them, I have my website. On my website, there's a deal that we took to close. They can see the whole deal from start to finish, all the great things, all the bad things, everything that happened, how the deal flow goes. So I point them to that. And then I tell them, once I have a deal, you'll get another call from me, or you'll get an email first. And that email will actually have our investor deck. And that investor deck will usually specify everything about the deal, where the deal is located, the MSA that it's in, all the numbers for the deal, and cash flow, ROI, return on investment, and the internal rate of return, which is basically your investment with time added. So all that information will be in that investor deck. And then I ask them, if you have any questions, or if you're interested, please let me know, and we'll hop on a call. That way, I know that even if they just want information from me, if they want to learn more about what I do, great, I'll hop on a call and let them know everything. If they're actually interested in the deal, great, I'll definitely hop on a call and talk with them about it. But it's really, when it comes to the investor, I put the investors first, because I want to provide an opportunity. I don't know if I talked about that, but I don't even go into the conversation like with the thought of raising money. That's not my mindset. My mindset is I go into the conversation with a thought about providing opportunity to my investors.
That is the way to do it. I mean, seriously, I think we were talking about this offline before, but that the investors are in it just like we are. You know what I mean? They're partners in the deal too. So they need to know about all that good stuff. Now, and asking questions is so important. So what would you say if you could either flip the role, or what kind of questions do you get the most often? Because what happens is, once you finally get through that they're interested phase, and then they want to review the documents, the next things that they're going to be looking at are large documents. And it can be a little intimidating, but don't be afraid to ask questions. You'll get a PPM, which is a private placement memorandum. You'll get a subscription agreement. You'll get what else do we give?
The private placement memorandum, the subscription agreement, all the information as to all the sponsors and GPs on the deal. So so I have been on the limited partner side of the deal.
Yeah.
I invest more in the person than really the deal. Yes, the numbers need to work, but we both know that there is inherent risk in every single investment, especially I don't know how people invest in anything after reading a PPM, because what a PPM will spell out in very almost graphic detail is how badly this could go. So after reading a PPM, I'm just like, I don't even know how people invest in large multifamily, but they do, because they understand that there's risk involved. So when I invest in people, like for instance, here's a story. When there was investor A went to my husband, Jason, and asked if we wanted to invest in a deal. And he said no, because we weren't looking to be on the limited partner side, and we weren't actually looking to be on any deal, because we came on the limited partner side and the general partner side for this deal.
Yeah.
We were actually not looking to be in any deals that we weren't sponsoring at that time. Unfortunately, Jason didn't tell me that. So investor B, who happened to be investor A's partner on the same deal, came to me, and I was like, of course I'll invest with you. Of course I'll invest in you. Okay, this is not advisable. I didn't even look at the deal. I just knew her so well that I knew she wouldn't be bringing me a deal, because she knows I sponsor my own deals. I'm a syndicator. She wouldn't be bringing me a deal if she didn't know that deal absolutely worked. And she also put over $1 million of her own money into that deal. So after knowing it was her, knowing how much money she already put into the deal, I already knew that it was going to be a good deal. Yes, I ran my numbers. Yes, I did the underwriting on it. but I invest in people first. So that's one of the first things I look at, no matter what deal it is, no matter where I'm going. I don't even want to know about the market. I want to know about the person first. All that other stuff I can Google, I can find out about. You can't lie when it comes to numbers. It'll come out eventually, hopefully before the deal closes, of course. But the numbers don't lie. People can lie about themselves. So you want to know and invest with those people, again, that you know, like, and trust.
How do you vet a person? That's some deep SHIT.
So I already had a long-standing relationship with this woman. I had actually never met her in person before. Mm-hmm. But we knew each other through being in conferences before, but not actually ever connecting. We connected a lot via Facebook and Instagram, and we were on each other's podcasts. We had mutual friends. So the vetting process happened long before she asked me to be. And, truth be told, she had to vet me too, because I did come on the GP side. So she wanted to have somebody that she, again, could know, like, and trust.